Officer Jackson was on his routine patrol when a young orphan girl approached him on a dimly lit street corner. She looked up at him with tear-filled eyes and whispered 3 words that sent shivers down his spine. Those 3 words revealed a truth that would unravel a web of mystery and danger, and Officer Jackson knew he had to act quickly. Officer Jackson was stunned when he first saw this young girl walking outside all alone at this time in the morning. He looked around to see if he could see her parents anywhere, but he quickly realized that she was all alone there, and she was walking straight to him. And her face, Jackson could read that there was something going on with her. When the little girl stood in front of him, he kneeled down in front of her. He tried to ask her what was wrong, but she just stared at him with tears in her eyes. Officer Jackson asked her what her name was, where she came from, who her parents were, every question in the book, and more. But he could not get a word out of the young girl. This was a situation that Officer Jackson had never been in. He was only on the force for about 3 years by now, and he had just been on a regular patrol this morning. He was busy writing a parking ticket when this suddenly happened. Luckily, he was not alone. His college officer, Maroy, was waiting in the car for him and had seen everything unfold. She had already made her way over to Jackson and the little girl and told them that she would quickly scout the area to see if she could determine where this girl had come from. Maybe her parents were also still around here somewhere and the girl was just lost. She also quickly radioed some colleges to help her in this search. All the while, Officer Jackson stayed with the girl. It was clear to him that she trusted him, and he was not about to betray that trust in any way. He walked her to the police car and sat down in the back with her. The girl still clearly did not want to talk, so Officer Jackson opted not to ask any more questions either. At least, not for now. He did not want to stress her out. At the same time, Officer Maroy and 4 other police officers that had quickly joined her were quickly going through the area. It was so early that there were not many people out and about. Most people were still asleep or preparing for the day. But they were not going to let this influence their search. Officer Jackson had taken a picture of the young girl and sent that to all the officers. They were starting to go door to door with it and asking everybody who opened up for them if they knew her or if they had even ever seen her before. But the reactions were all pretty much the same. Nobody wanted to give them anything. But Maroy was not sure they were telling the truth. This was a very poor neighborhood in the city, and one that notoriously did not have the biggest admiration for the police. You could say that they absolutely hate the armed forces. So most of the people who opened the door for Maroy and the college wanted to close it again as quickly as possible. This was getting them nowhere. But in the end, their efforts were not completely for nothing. One older woman that was willing to open the door for them did recognize the girl. Like most people they had spoken to, she also had no interest in talking to the police. But she did make a quick comment when she saw the girl's photo. That girl there, she is an orphan. No mother, no father. When Officer Maroy pressed her to tell them how she knew this or if she could give them more information, the older woman quickly seemed to realize what she had just said and told the officers that she did not know anything else. And the longer Maroy tried to talk to her, the more stressed she seemed to become, until the woman slammed the door in her face. Officer Maroy knew that if she wanted to get more information out of this woman, she would either have to arrest her or get a search warrant to go through the house. Both things were big steps to take against a woman whose, most likely, only crime was that she was withholding information. But now, all Officer Maroy could do was keep this in mind. For now, their search had come to an end, and even though they had some information, they still had no idea where this girl came from. Because even if the old woman was right, and she was in fact an orphan. Then where had she been all this time? She had to have been living somewhere. If she lived on the street, she would have been noticed a while ago. Who had taken care of her? Defeated, Officer Mulroy reported back to Jackson, who was still waiting with the young girl in the back seat of the police car. The next step was to take her to the police station and work it out from there. And when Officer Jackson asked the girl if she wanted to join them, he got no objection. No confirmation either, of course, but this was good enough for him. On the ride back to the police station, the two officers discussed what would be their best course of action. Of course, they would need to put out a citywide message that they had found this girl and that her caretaker needed to report to the station immediately. But what if that did not work? Would they just have to hand her over to foster care? After their car ride back, Officer Jackson and Mulroy quickly set into motion a citywide alert, releasing the orphan girl's picture across various platforms. As the image circulated throughout the city, calls began flooding the police station, each one a potential lead that could unravel the mystery of the girl's identity. Yet many seemed to lead only into deeper confusion. The police station, once a hub of controlled activity, now buzzed with an overwhelming influx of calls, each claiming to hold the key to the young girl's past. Officers hunched over phones, scribbling notes with a mix of hope and skepticism, but as the day wore on, the pile of discarded leads grew, each a dead end adding to their mounting frustration. Outside, the city reacted with a swirling mix of concern and curiosity, with people gathering in small groups, discussing the case with fervor. Despite the high public interest, no substantial leads emerged. It was as if the girl had appeared out of thin air, her past a puzzle that refused to be solved. By the next morning, local news channels had picked up the story, casting a spotlight on the mysterious case. With each broadcast, the pressure on the police department intensified, as did the rampant speculation swirling through the city, turning the search into a spectacle that everyone watched, but no one could solve. As days passed, the extensive efforts of the police, coupled with the city's heightened attention, yielded no breakthroughs. The lack of credible information on the girl's identity or background only thickened the air of mystery surrounding her, leaving Officer Jackson and Mulroy grappling with a case that seemed to deepen in complexity with each passing hour. In a turn that piqued both their interest and skepticism, an anonymous tip redirected Officer Jackson and Mulroy towards a wealthy neighborhood, its manicured lawns and sprawling estates a vivid contrast to the dimly lit streets where they had found the girl. They couldn't help but wonder what connection, if any, this polished world could have to the orphan's mysterious story. As their patrol car rolled into the affluent neighborhood, the officers couldn't help but be struck by the stark differences that unfolded before them. Here, the streets were wide and clean, the houses large and imposing, a world away from the cramped, shadowy corners of the city they had just left. It was like stepping into a different realm altogether. In this opulent setting, the residents they encountered were polite, yet there was an unmistakable air of skepticism in their responses. They cooperated with the investigation, answering questions with courteous, measured tones, but their eyes held a wariness, as if the presence of police in their pristine neighborhood was an unwelcome irregularity. Despite the apparent willingness to help, the wealthy locals claimed no knowledge of the orphan girl. Their responses were uniformly clueless, yet delivered with a sincerity that left Jackson and Mulroy in a state of puzzlement. Could such a girl truly be unknown in a community where everyone seemed to know everything about their neighbors? The day waned with the anonymous tip leading seemingly to a dead end. Yet, as they drove away, the contrast between the neighborhoods lingered in their minds, a niggling thought that perhaps this disparity held a clue. Was this a mere coincidence, or a piece of the puzzle they were missing. Driving back from the affluent neighborhood, the glaring social and economic disparities between there and where the girl was found became increasingly evident to Jackson and Maroy. The stark divide painted a picture of two different worlds within the same city, raising questions about how and why the girl had crossed from one to the other. In the quiet of their patrol car, the officers found themselves reflecting on the strikingly different attitudes and lifestyles of the two areas. The contrast was jarring. One neighborhood wrapped in warmth and community, the other in a cloak of polished indifference. It was a disparity that colored their thoughts as they pondered the girl's connection to these worlds. Back at the station, Jackson and Maroy pored over maps and records, searching for any possible link between the girl and the wealthy neighborhood. They scrutinized property records, local businesses, and community members, hoping to unearth a thread, however faint, that could lead them to answers about her origins. Despite their best efforts, their search through the affluent area's records and inquiries yielded nothing but dead ends. It was as if the girl had never set foot in that part of the city, her existence seemingly unacknowledged by its well-heeled inhabitants. This lack of connection only deepened the mystery surrounding her. Faced with a growing pile of leads that went nowhere, frustration mounted for the two officers. Yet, within that frustration lay a steadfast resolve. They knew that somewhere in the city, someone held the key to the girl's past. With renewed determination, they vowed to continue their search, believing that no stone left unturned might eventually lead them to the truth. While driving through the wealthy neighborhood once more, a sudden, sharp intake of breath from the girl caught the officers' attention. As they passed a particularly grand mansion, her eyes widened and her small hands clenched into fists. This unexpected reaction stirred a keen interest in Jackson and Maroy. Was there a hidden connection between the girl and this opulent residence? Deciding to follow this lead, they approached the mansion and were met by its owner, a figure known for his prominence in the community. He greeted them with a polished veneer of concern, but when shown the girl's picture, he quickly denied any knowledge of her. His denial, so swift and rehearsed, left a trace of doubt lingering in the air. As the conversation with the mansion owner continued, Jackson and Maroy couldn't shake off a nagging suspicion. His answers were a little too perfect, his demeanor a bit too composed. This veneer of calm seemed to mask something else, a hint of unease, perhaps, which the trained eyes of the officers did not miss. Using the pretext of a routine inquiry, the officers asked to take a look around the mansion. As they walked through its opulent halls, they kept a watchful eye on the girl, who remained silent yet visibly tense. Every glance she cast around the mansion seemed to carry a story yet to be told. Leaving the mansion with more questions than answers, Jackson and Maroy felt a deepening sense of uncertainty. The owner's polished denial and the girl's silent, telling reactions created a puzzle that refused to fit together neatly. They couldn't shake the feeling that behind the mansion's grand facade lay secrets yet to be uncovered. Back at their desks, Jackson and Maroy began to peel back the layers of the mansion owner's life, combing through financial records and past interactions. What they found were irregularities that didn't add up, a series of transactions and financial movements that were complex and, at times, barely legal. These discoveries hinted at hidden depths to the owner's polished exterior. The more they dug, the more they uncovered. Among the mansion owner's financial records were transactions that raised eyebrows, large sums of money moving in unusual patterns, and connections to shadowy figures in the city's social elite. These dealings painted a picture of someone who played at the edges of legality, adept at staying just within the lines. Despite these findings, Nothing they uncovered could directly link the mansion owner to the girl. The financial irregularities, while suspicious, didn't provide the smoking gun they needed to connect him to her situation. It was a frustrating dead end. Evidence of wrongdoing, perhaps, but not the kind they were searching for. With concrete evidence elusive, Jackson and Morroy decided on a new approach. They set up discreet surveillance on the mansion and its owner, hoping that a watchful eye might reveal something the paper trail had not. This patient, silent observation became their new strategy in unraveling the mystery of the girl and the mansion. As days turned into nights and back into days, the case grew only more intricate. Every piece of information seemed to add complexity rather than clarity, weaving a web of intrigue around the girl, the mansion, and its enigmatic owner. The puzzle before them was missing crucial pieces, and each attempt to find them only revealed how deep and tangled the mystery truly was. In the quiet moments of observation, the girl's reactions became a language of their own. Each mention of the mansion or its owner seemed to cast a shadow over her small face, a subtle but unmistakable sign of fear that flickered in her eyes. These fleeting expressions did not go unnoticed by Jackson and Morroy, adding a silent yet powerful weight to their growing suspicions. As the investigation continued, the girl's emotional responses grew more pronounced. The mere glimpse of the mansion on a document or the sound of the owner's name would tighten her features into a visage of dread. These reactions, wordless as they were, screamed volumes, echoing in the officers' minds and compelling them to probe deeper into the shadows of the case. Amidst the unfolding investigation, Jackson found himself increasingly protective of the young girl. He saw in her silent resilience a mirror to his own sense of duty, and her unspoken fears stoked a fire of empathy within him. This protective instinct solidified his resolve to uncover the truth, not just as an officer, but as a guardian of the vulnerable. Yet, for all the emotions she unwittingly conveyed, the girl remained a fortress of silence. Her refusal or inability to speak added layers to the mystery, making her a silent witness to a story only she could fully tell. This silence was a puzzle in itself, one that both frustrated and intrigued Jackson and Morroy in equal measure. Faced with the enigma of the girl's reactions and the fruitless results of their surveillance, the officers decided it was time for a more direct approach. They resolved to confront the mansion owner once again, this time armed with the weight of their observations and the hope that their directness might finally provoke a revealing reaction, a crack in the polished armor he wore. With a mixture of determination and apprehension, Jackson and Morroy approached the mansion once more, their strides resolute. As they stood at the doorstep, ready to confront the owner, the air was thick with tension, a palpable force that seemed to underscore the gravity of their mission and the potential volatility of the encounter that awaited them. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere crackled with an electric charge as the officers pointed, probing questions at the owner. They watched, keen-eyed, as his polished facade began to show cracks, his responses shifting from smooth assurances to defensive retorts. Each deflection, each guarded reply, only served to heighten their suspicion. Amidst the heated exchange, the girl, who had been a silent shadow by the officer's side, suddenly showed signs of overwhelming distress. Her small frame trembled, her eyes wide and haunted, as if the words being spoken were conjuring ghosts only she could see. This visible unraveling of her composure lent a new urgency to the officer's questioning. In a moment, as fragile as it was unexpected, the girl's voice, long silent, pierced the tense air. Her words, "There are others," were soft, yet carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken horrors. This revelation, simple yet chilling, hung in the room, a specter that instantly shifted the narrative of the investigation. The girl's 3 words, laden with implications, steered the investigation into uncharted waters. Jackson and Maroy exchanged glances, a silent communication that spoke volumes of their shared realization. They were no longer dealing with a singular, isolated case, but potentially a much larger, more sinister situation. This new direction promised a path fraught with darker truths and hidden depths. In the wake of the girl's unexpected revelation, Jackson and Maroy acted swiftly. With a mixture of shock and determination, they detained the mansion owner, his earlier composure now replaced by a look of disbelief. As they escorted him from his opulent surroundings, the officers knew they were stepping into a potentially deep and troubling part of the investigation. Recognizing the gravity of the girl's statement, a comprehensive search of the property was quickly organized. Jackson and Maroy called in additional officers, briefing them with an urgency that underscored the potential seriousness of what they might uncover. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and status, was now the focus of grim and intense scrutiny. With meticulous precision, the search of the mansion began. Teams of officers moved through the expansive rooms, their eyes combing every inch, their hands testing walls for hidden compartments. Each hallway, each room, brought them deeper into the heart of the mansion, a labyrinth of luxury that might hide unspeakable secrets. As the search wore on, the atmosphere among the officers grew dense with tension and anticipation. With each new room they cleared, the weight of what remained undiscovered grew heavier. The silence of the search was punctuated only by the occasional crackle of radios and the soft tread of their steps, a stark contrast to the opulence that surrounded them. In a secluded wing of the mansion, their methodical search led them to an unassuming door, skillfully hidden within the intricate designs of the wall. The discovery of this hidden area sent a ripple of apprehension through the team. As they prepared to breach the concealed door, the air was heavy with the sense that they were on the cusp of a disturbing reality. As the hidden door swung open, a grim scene unfolded before the officers' eyes. In stark contrast to the mansion's grandeur, they found several small, dimly lit rooms. Each confined space revealed another child, each appearing just as bewildered and neglected as the first girl they had found. The discovery of these children, hidden away in such deplorable conditions, sent waves of shock and anger through the team. In the midst of this harrowing discovery, a crucial piece of evidence emerged. Amidst a clutter of paperwork, a document detailed the adoption of the girl by the mansion owner. It became chillingly clear that she, along with the other children, had been used as mere sources of income, a despicable exploitation hidden beneath a veneer of wealth and respectability. With each document and each testimony from the rescued children, the horrifying reality of the situation became more apparent. The mansion owner had been running a sinister operation, exploiting vulnerable children for financial gain. The depth of his deceit and inhumanity, cloaked in the guise of a respected community member, left the officers grappling with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. Following the shocking discoveries within the mansion, the owner was formally arrested. The charges laid against him were severe and numerous, encompassing child exploitation, neglect, and a host of related offenses. As he was taken into custody, a sense of grim satisfaction mixed with profound sorrow permeated among the officers. Justice was being served, but at what cost to the innocent? With the owner in custody, the immediate focus shifted to the welfare of the children. Efforts were swiftly mobilized to ensure their safety and well-being. Social workers, child psychologists, and medical personnel were brought in, each playing a crucial role in beginning the delicate process of rehabilitation and care. For the officers, ensuring these children felt safe and cared for became a paramount concern, a small beacon of hope in a case that had revealed such darkness. As news of the case spread, the local community reacted with a mix of shock, anger, and profound sympathy. Vigils were organized, and donations poured in, with people from all walks of life coming forward to offer support. The community's response was a heartening display of unity and compassion, a collective embrace for the children who had endured so much. With the children now safe, the next crucial step was finding them new homes. Child welfare agencies, bolstered by community support, worked tirelessly to identify foster and adoptive families. These efforts were guided by a deep commitment to ensuring that each child would be placed in a loving, nurturing environment, a stark contrast to the shadows they had been rescued from. Do you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.